I have had clients that have been with me for 23, 24 years, and I've cut their kids. Their kids have gone to college and had kids. That's a testament to the person. And so we forget sometimes that we don't control the professional, and the salon itself isn't now the staple to the client.
The startup investment landscape is changing, and world-class companies are being built outside of Silicon Valley. We find them, talk with them, and discuss the upside of investing in them. Welcome to Upside.
Woo!
Hello, and welcome to the Upside Podcast. First podcast finding upside outside of Silicon Valley. I'm Eric Hornung, and I'm accompanied by my co-host, Mr. Coffee Delays himself, Jay Klaus. Jay, how's it going, man?
I don't know if that's a nickname specifically for me or if that's a nickname for us.
I think it's a nickname for our process.
Our process, yeah. Let's just formalize it and make it a formal part of our process here of recording these intros.
For the listeners, if we schedule an interview like this morning at 5:45 a.m. or any time really, it really doesn't matter what time, one of the two of us will almost always write exactly at that start time, hey, I need 5 minutes making coffee, making a pot of coffee, grabbing a coffee.
Never 5 minutes earlier. Never like actual warning to the other. Just, hey, I know I'm supposed to be on the microphone right now, but no, coffee.
And I think I will take full blame for that because I probably do it like 75+% of the time.
And this morning I sent Eric an article from Inc. Couldn't find the article that I had originally read, but I remembered reading a piece that seemed like some pseudoscience that didn't quite have all the questions answered for me, that explained the best times of day for you to drink coffee. But the first article I read did not address things like your time zone or your natural circadian rhythm. It just said basically like you should drink coffee at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. In any case, seemed earlier than Eric should be drinking coffee. And it seems that if you drink coffee right out of bed, your cortisol levels are rising and it's not the best time. It can cause you some unnecessary stress.
That's why I always sound so stressed out on the podcast.
You sound stressed out. No, but you do sound like you got a little bit of a cold there, bud.
I do. It was very bad earlier this week, and I'm getting over it. So I apologize if I sound a little congested on the podcast. I apologize to the listeners, but we're going to push through it. We're going to fight through it because we have an awesome guest on today.
We do. We have our first company in Texas.
First company in Texas.
First company in Texas. We have ShearShare today. ShearShare connects salon and barbershop owners to licensed stylists to fill unused suites and stations on demand. Salon and barbershop owners make money on their empty chairs, and licensed cosmetologists and barbers find professional space to work during the day. Think of it like Airbnb for salons and barbershops. And our guests today are the co-founders of ShearShare, Dr. Tye and Courtney Caldwell. Dr. Tye is the CEO of ShearShare. He holds a Doctorate of Professional Barbering and is a #1 best-selling author on how to achieve long-term success in the beauty and style industry. Courtney, the COO of ShearShare, had previously managed a boutique consulting firm where she fast-tracked international sales and marketing success for brands such as Zendesk, Zenefits, and Qualtrics. ShearShare was founded in 2015 with the beta of their app released in 2016. To this point, they've already raised $1.1 million in what they called a pre-seed round, which was led by Precursor Ventures and included Backstage Capital, 500 Startups, Y Combinator, and Capital Factory.
It's going to be an interesting interview because it's our first time having two co-founders on.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. And it sounds like ShearShare has an interesting founding story. And what we have here is a couple who co-founded this company. So I'm thinking that it should be a very interesting dynamic and a fun story to dig into. And Eric, as you've noted to me here offline, we often talk about the other founders or try to talk about the other founders in the business, and to have them both on today will give us a different experience.
Absolutely. I'm excited to kind of check out that dynamic in our interview. There's going to be 4 voices on the podcast, so it'll be interesting to kind of play with the different personalities.
Eric, ShearShare has been on your radar for a while. How did you first become aware of the company?
I think I'm just on Twitter too much. That's what it really comes down to.
No. I think you should be on Twitter more. Your Twitter game is much better than mine, and you've got the Upside Twitter handle dialed in much better than I do.
So I think I first heard about ShearShare via Twitter. So Jay and I are always looking for new cities, new areas of the country, new areas of the world to tap into and find companies outside of Silicon Valley. One of those is Dallas. And I remember seeing a tweet either from or about Steve Case's Business Insider Ignition Conference. And I want to say that that's the first, or that's when it really clicked for me. But I've seen the name around a bunch on Twitter. They have a ton of awards for a very early company. I think they're the TechCo Startup of the Year. I believe that Courtney won L'Oreal's Women in Digital, and they also won Google Demo Day, maybe?
Google Demo Day 2018, 2016 Tech Cocktail Company of the Year. They're a 500 Startups Batch 19 alum. I did see a whole list of awards that both the Caldwells have won to this point. But what I'm really interested in is what seems like some pretty quick traction at this point. Their website says they're in 350 cities, 11 countries, and it mentions that they connect salon owners to over 1 million stylists to fill empty salon chairs. And I didn't know if that was a number of the market size or how many users they're actually serving so far, but that'd be a big number if they're serving 1 million stylists already.
Yeah, absolutely. With only taking on 1.1 million in capital to date, that would be crazy. It would be crazy, but it wouldn't be unreasonable for founders outside of Silicon Valley to be that kind of capital efficient.
Yeah, so excited to talk to the Caldwells here. Before we jump in the interview, guys, I want to remind you that as we go through the interview, feel free to tweet at us at UpsideFM. We'd love to hear your thoughts in real time as you're listening to the Caldwells tell their story. If we miss anything, tweet at us at UpsideFM, or if it spurs any thoughts or ideas for you, we'd love to hear from you. And we'll get to that interview with the Caldwells right after this.
Hey guys, wanted to cut in here real quick and let you know about something Jay and I have been getting ready behind the scenes in 2019. When we started this podcast, Jay and I said that you, the listener, would have an opportunity to learn in real time, to think like venture investors with us as we meet a wide variety of personalities and examine a wide range of industries. Well, now we're going to share something new, and it's a little different. This new idea is called The Update. It's a carefully curated quarterly publication of editorials, trends, and stories happening outside of Silicon Valley. Jay and I will be writing stories about what we're learning about on the podcast, have guest editorials on interesting topics, and share news and updates from our podcasts. In some cases, we may even share some exclusive content or first looks. Our goal is to stay at the cutting edge, and of course, bring you along with us. We're super excited about it and know you're going to love it. If you want to be the first to hear about our Q1 launch and subsequent letters, go to upside.fm/update to get on the mailing list.
Tye and Courtney, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are excited to have you guys on. So on Upside, we like to start with the history of the founder and the background of the founder, but we have two founders on today. And I think you guys have a little bit of an interesting founder story. Can you tell us about the history of Tye and Courtney?
You start first.
Okay, great. So I was a military brat growing up. I think that's important because as a military brat, my dad was an Army doctor. You have to become pretty resilient about moving around, like upstarting your life every couple of years, right? So we moved quite a bit. Every 18 to 24 months, we were in a different location. But I was born in Santa Cruz, California, believe it or not. Although when people ask me where I'm from, I always say San Antonio, Texas, because that's where I graduated high school. So my dad was a military doc. My mother was a social worker, now works for several military bases back home in San Antonio. I am the oldest of two kids, so pretty small family, but everyone is pretty much like a chameleon. Love that, although we were a very small, tight-knit unit, family's always first. And I learned at a very early age to never leave a man behind. Decided that I thought actually that I was going to end up doing military full time. Did not do that, even though my mother tried as she might to put every single great decision in front of me where I would always choose military. I went to a military high school. All my friends were, kids of military men and women. But I got to SMU in Dallas, Texas on an Army ROTC scholarship and a leadership scholarship and said, this doesn't feel like I want to do this forever. I've known this all my life. I think I want to do something different. So because I chose differently, I think I felt like the black sheep of the family for a while, because the only one who wasn't serving in the military, but decided that marketing was my thing. And so went to SMU, fell in love with marketing, did that, graduated early from the honors program, rolled right into getting my master's degree from UT Dallas, and then started working in corporate America for software enterprises, and did that for 20 years before I decided to take a jump and do something completely different. And that's where ShearShare started.
That's great. My background, I come from a very close-knit family. Grew up in Arkansas, Lexa, Arkansas, a small town south of Memphis, Tennessee.
How many people?
And it was 13 of us in a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom house.
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
So from great-grandmother all the way to nephew, very close-knit. I learned early on what it feels like to take care of family, to be a team player. Ended up moving to Dallas, Texas at the age of 15. Finished at Hillcrest High School. Before I left there, before I went to school in Texas, I was an all-star 3-sport in Letterman, track, football, and basketball. Went to Texas on my own, living with my sister, and realized that the world is different, and ended up graduating and deciding to go to school for sports medicine and psychology. And for the second semester, I decided, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm an entrepreneur by heart, and decided to go back to my first love, which was barbering and cosmetology. Went to school, finished, was a student teacher, decided after 5 years to start my own business. Ended up finishing out my doctorate in professional barbering and cosmetology at Miracle University, the only university in the nation that has those degrees. Been an entrepreneur since I was 19 and married this beautiful woman named Courtney, and realized that there's more to this industry than just being behind the chair. Mm-hmm. So I wrote a best-selling book called Mentored by Failure. I'm an instructor, I'm a teacher, I'm a speaker, and man, life has been a journey. And once you realize that there's more to life, you start to see things differently, and you get exposed to things because the gravitational pull comes your way. So I've learned that life is a journey, and I've been exposed in so many ways, and I'm proud to be a partner now as a co-founder and CEO of ShearShare.
I think something interesting, too, that most people don't know is that we met at Tye Salon over 2 decades ago. And never would I have thought that we'd be coming full circle to doing what we do now at ShearShare.
So tell me a little bit more about that, because you kind of took me down each of your individual paths, but tell me about how the paths kind of intertwined.
So I think I was working at Oracle at the time. So I was leading Oracle's digital strategy and demand gen group, had P&L across 5 continents, was traveling quite a bit. At the same time, Tye was going back to school for his doctorate. He was finishing up this #1 best-selling book, and he was touring around to different cosmetology schools and barber colleges talking about the book. And during this time, we have our own salon, right? So our 20-year-old award-winning salon, and we decided to expand it because the business was so good. So we did that and did not receive typical phone calls from stylists looking to rent space. So what's the usual course of action in our industry is that stylists will call you, you'll do an interview process, and if they're looking to rent long-term booth rent, then they end up paying you a weekly booth rent or a monthly booth rent and signing a long-term contract. That's just how it's always been. Or they choose to work on commission. And so they're a full-time employee and they may take home, 60% and you keep 40% or whatever the percentages that you negotiate, but always based on a long-term contract. And so we started to get these phone calls from a couple of stylists who said, hey, I just need space like on a Friday, Saturday. I just relocated like an hour away. I'm really afraid of losing my clients. They make up the majority of my book of business. And so I heard about you guys. Would you even do something like that? And I remember Tye came home and he was telling about this phone call, and I kind of laughed it off. And I was like, oh my gosh, like who would ever do that? Like no one ever does that in the industry. You don't barter space. You don't, come in for a day or 2 at a time. I think that's, hilarious. And he was like, yeah, I think so too. But you know what, those suites are lying dormant right now. I may as well give it a whirl. And so he did.
And, one of the things you got to realize about this industry, this is an archaic industry. It's been the same for years. We're going to go over 100 years. And so the mindset hasn't changed. And anytime you're doing something different, people are a little skeptical. And once we did that and realized it was a great experience, and you're looking at it like, man, this is just a day. They're going to be here a day. They're not going to be a part of the team. They're not going to be a part of the culture. How is this going to affect the people that are working here? And believe it or not, when they came in, they felt like they were a part of the team. I mean, just that one day. And, to see such an experience happen right before your eyes, and then after you're finished, you're kind of like doing all these things that you do on these apps today. You're rating and reviewing. You're going through all this conversation piece that you would normally do in the flow of a app if you're doing it. We were just like, man, she came back to me about 2-3 days later, and she said, Dr. Tye, I need to go to 5 other salons. Are you able to get me in these salons? Because I want to be closer to my clients. And, I don't want to lose anyone. So the old adage would be, if your client moved away or if you moved away, you lost those clients. Right. So with ShearShare, well, it wasn't back then. You couldn't retain those clients. We now can help you get into a salon closer to your clientele. So I said, why do you choose to ask me to do it? She said, well, the interesting thing about you, Dr. Tye, is that you play both sides of the coin. You're not only a licensed professional, you're a salon owner. So you speak the language, you know the lingo, you're able to vet me and talk about me to the other salon owner and let them know that I'm not a threat to their salon. I say, you're absolutely correct. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking about what's in it for me. So Courtney and I, 3 years now in, we're playing this concierge service, because then her friends started coming to us. And their friends started coming to us, asking us to do the same thing for them that we did for their friends.
Yeah, people had our personal phone numbers, believe it or not, and some of them still do. And they say, hey, such and such told me about you guys. I have to, go home this weekend and I need a salon space. This is kind of what I'm looking for. Can you find something for me? And that's literally what we did for three years, right?
3 years. And it felt really, really shorter than that, because we were totally moving around. I'm traveling. She's traveling. We're traveling together. We're working together. And I always told her, you know what? I said, I wish I could hire you. You're so efficient. You're super fast. I said, but I just can't afford you right now.
You mentioned an interesting point, Dr. Tye, about the culture and being part of the team. I often talk to my barber about how my haircut and my loyalty to him is one of the last standing pieces of loyalty I have to like a service in my life, right? And a huge part of that experience of going to Santarelli's, my barbershop, is the experience of the barbershop and the people there that are familiar, and it's just an enjoyable experience. So I'd like to hear from you, when you had that first experience of somebody coming into a suite that wasn't quote unquote part of the team and it worked, how did you know that that was a testament to the possibility versus that person being a good culture fit or the environment that you created being a good environment?
Well, that's a great question. You got to look at it like this. These are licensed professionals. And for so many years, the barbershop, the salon, or the spa treated them as if they weren't the business. They are a business amongst themselves. And the testament today is social media, all the things that are wrapped around the individual when it comes to an influencer. That's what makes it a genuine partnership. And so when this licensed professional came to me, the stylist, it was easy for me to know what she wanted, because what we need is the professional space. We are working with the client. So we are a business within ourselves working under the roof of another business. So what do we want to give? We want to give professionalism. We want to give aesthetics. We want to give the culture of what they need. And everything really works around the client. And so I knew exactly what she wanted. And I was appreciative that she came to me with a compliment that I could help her. But just going back to what you're saying, those are probably the only longest standing relationships now that you can have. And that's with your stylist or with your barber or with whoever touches you when it comes to beauty, because beauty touches everyone from the president all the way down to the pauper. And you have to realize that anytime you build that relationship, it goes a long ways. I have had clients that have been with me for 23, 24 years, and I've cut their kids. Their kids have gone to college and had kids. That's a testament to the person. And so we forget sometimes that we don't control the professional, and the salon itself isn't now the staple to the client. The stylist, the beauty professional, is the staple now to the client. And if that client wants to go to that licensed professional, whether they're in commission-based salon, they're going to go there. And now you just don't walk in and say, go to such and such. No, they're going to say, I want to go to Courtney, or I want to go to Tye. That's the person that they want to be comfortable with. They know they're comfortable with. And so the salons are struggling, trying to figure out how can they keep things the same. Things will never be the same again. It's totally different now.
From a pure like blocking and tackling standpoint, as the salon owner or as the stylist coming in, are there any aspects to kind of parachuting into an open booth and setting things up and being familiar with the setup? Or is that pretty much, I'm a stylist, I have my equipment, I come in, I need some outlets and to know, where X, Y, and Z is, and I'm good to go?
Well, we work with 8 different licensed professionals. So a barber would need something different from a cosmetologist who's a colorist, and a makeup artist would need something different from someone who is a massage therapist. So it's really not always about the plug. It's really about the space. It's really about the equipment. And all the equipment doesn't require electricity. Some equipment requires a lot of space for a longer table for a massage therapist. Some places may require a chair that leans back so someone can do your eyebrows or your makeup. And then you may need a swivel chair for a barber who needs a lot of plugs and a lot of outlets. So it really depends. And that's the aesthetics of really having a full service barbershop, salon, or spa, and how many licensed professionals that you can take in at one time. So it just really depends. And one of the things that make it so different is that you can separate those people now if you have a salon suite or if you have a barbershop that has a room where they can get that privacy, because now you have weaves, now you have people making full-on wigs, and you have people just getting all these different things. So when they go in, they go in one way and they come out looking like from the back door, coming straight out the front door because they look so different. So it just really depends on the licensed professional specialty.
Yeah.
And how does that fit into ShearShare? How do you customize for those 8 different types of professionals?
So, we first started off with just allowing hairstylists and barbers to rent on the app, right? And now if you're a hairstylist, a barber, makeup artist, esthetician, massage therapist, microblading artist, the person who does the eyebrows generally, and hair braider, you can find space to work on ShearShare. 40% actually of salon space goes unused every day. So already you have these owners who are very sensitive to allowing someone to come into their space. They're looking to fill that additional overhead. In many of the cases, the beautiful thing about them having that open space right now is that they have all the accoutrements that a barber, individual barber, or an individual cosmetologist would need. So we work with these owners to build out their listing on the app. So they're very particular about, what it is that they offer, what things they don't offer. In addition to that, the licensed professional, the visiting stylist, if you will, has the opportunity to ask questions of the owner. Say, oh, I see that you have a private suite. It's, 10 by 10. There's already a table in there, but is there also A, B, and C? And so all of that kind of gets worked out prior to. And then we also take that as learnings, right? So if we see that the same 10 questions get asked every day, then that better informs us on what additional information we need to ask for the host while we're vetting that individual to put onto the app.
Before I get too excited about product-specific questions, I'd love to hear more about the transition between you guys meeting, you guys having this insight, and then building the app. There are a lot of steps involved here, right? So early on, Courtney, you had mentioned that you guys met in Tye's salon, and then all of a sudden it seemed that the story kind of went to you guys were operating the salon and it was working well, and now you're expanding it. So tell me more about the moment of you met Tye and you guys decided either that you're going to go into business together or you started a relationship. Help me close the gap there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, 20 years is a long time, isn't it? So Tye and I met in his salon because I was looking for a service at the time. So that's when our relationship, our friendship started. We didn't start thinking about ShearShare until, 2012, 2015. Yeah, we started doing this thing called ShearShare manually back in 2012. And we always like to say that we're fast learners, but gosh, guys, it took us 3 years before we looked up and said, okay, wait a minute, this whole matching thing is starting to feel like a full-time job. Let's go out there and look for something that does what we're doing, because right now there seems to be an app for everything. When Paul Graham says that software is eating the world, we definitely felt that. And so we went to Google, we were searching for, what it is that we do, like what app can match independent stylists to empty salon space on demand? Like, where is that thing? I searched, I couldn't find it. Tye searched and searched, he couldn't find it. And that was the aha moment for us, where we looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, this doesn't even exist. Like, what would our lives look like if we started to build out ShearShare? And that's where we started.
What had changed so much in 2012 that matching was growing so much?
Well, I knew that the industry was changing because I saw a lot of salons and barbershops, And the shift came when I would go into different salons and barbershops. So I would ask different stylists who were inquiring about my space. I was like, my thing is to get to know them. I always ask them, are you looking other places? And she said, yes. She said, there's a lot of empty spaces out there, but I don't like the location. And she said, you have prime location. And so I would go into looking at mail. So we always got paper mail from different salon suites popping up, different salons that were advertising that they had empty space, that they were looking for the stylist to come and rent that space or get a chair. Great Clips was sending stuff out, Sports Clips. You have different salons that always send out this mail looking for stylists who are graduating from school, because you constantly got stylists, barbers, licensed professionals graduating monthly. I'm talking about tons monthly. And so once I started realizing that my friends and my friends' friends were having an issue filling their space, it's not that they were overbuilding in their salons and adding more chairs. It's just that there was just not enough people to rent their space, because people were starting now, because of the old adage and the old mindset, working at home, working in hotels, traveling to different cities. Texas has 4 of the biggest cities in the world, in the nation, in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and Austin. So they would just go to Austin and just do hair in hotels, or meet at their parents' home, or meet at their home, turning these places into businesses that don't have the accoutrements of a salon, a barbershop, the swivel chair, the lighting, the mirror, anything that will allow them to create and give the best service that they can. So we just realized now, where are these stylists at? And we knew that they weren't in the salon. So we started realizing this is an issue, not just for the stylists and the licensed professionals, but for the salons, because they weren't allowing people to come in and work by the day. And because they were looking for this quote unquote person to come in and fit the culture. And you got to understand, if you go to school from anywhere from 9 months to 2 years to get your degree, you're ready to work in a salon. But if you're not offering them the opportunity where they want to work a week and not have to sign these long-term contracts, then you're not making a just due to help these people get into this industry the right way. Because most of the time, commission-based salons want to offer an apprenticeship before you can even get on the floor. So you have to, even though you go to school, it's just like conventional college. Even though you go to school, you still have to come in and learn that business style. You have to learn their trainings before they can actually let you out there. So you're going through a course training of figuring out how this salon works, what tools they use, what products they use, so you can fit in. And if you're an independent contractor, you're just going in head first, because you don't want to have to worry about going through training. You're your own business within yourself. And so you're signing a long-term lease or a long-term contract.
So I want to kind of clarify what you just said in my own head for what is like the traditional route. So that's, you go to school for 9 months to 2 years, then you graduate and you would find some sort of apprenticeship role at a salon. You mentioned commission-based. I'm not really familiar with that. And then also this independent contractor route. Can you just kind of break that down? If I'm a new stylist, I just graduated beauty school, what does getting a chair look like? What are my options leaving beauty school?
Well, you graduate, you get your license, you go to ABC Salon. After you pass your license test, you go to ABC Salon, and they're working on commission only. So you're only getting a percentage of the service, and you're getting a percentage of the products that you sell. So this is just their platform. This is how they work. And so a lot of times this is easier for people who are afraid to branch out on their own as an independent contractor. So now independent contractor doesn't work for the salon as an employee. They are just on a 1099. They're a part of the salon. They're a part of the culture, but they don't have to deal with all the commission-based experiences, because they know that they are a licensed professional to do one thing. Most of the time when you go into a commission-based salon, we'll just use Great Clips or Sports Clips as one. You only can cut there. You only can cut, and you have to cut in a timely fashion. So you can't do color, you can't do weaving, you can't do makeup, you can't do any of those things. It's just an experience for cutting, and it has to be in a timely fashion. So if you leave beauty school, you're going to have to go there, get your training, learn the 1, 2, 3 steps of how to cut the necessary cuts to get those clients out. But if you're an independent contractor, now you're working more of in a specialty. You can do those things you went to school for and do it at a salon that works for you.
And is that independent contractor, are they typically renting a booth, or are they still operating under the umbrella of the business that they're contracting under?
It's a 2-part series. They're renting a booth, and they're operating under the umbrella of the salon, the culture, and the rules.
So they have a certain overhead they're paying to the salon to operate in that salon, and the money is going to the business and then contracted out to the individual as opposed to the individual?
Yeah, so the average chair rental across the U.S. is $200 a week. So not only am I paying that $200 on a weekly basis, but I've already signed a long-term contract, right? Because that's how the salon owner is trying to plan ahead, quarter over quarter, year over year. So I may be signing a 6-month lease, a 9-month lease, a 12-month lease, in addition to me signing on to be committed to working out of that particular chair, out of that particular salon. I'm paying this weekly booth rent.
You kind of spoke to what seemed to be a marketplace inefficiency of matching these two together. And that is what seems to be the crux of ShearShare, is making this market more efficient, this marketplace more efficient. Can you talk to me about the pure supply and demand side of this market and how big they are?
So the last 15 years, Tye kind of mentioned the shift. Over the last 15 years or so, we noticed that an increasing number of stylists were moving towards becoming independent, right? So they didn't want to work out of a commission-based salon. They didn't want to be a full-time team member. They wanted to build their own book of business. And so we call them solopreneurs. At the same time, we started to see a huge decrease in the number of traditional standing salons. So these are where you would work as a full-time employee or on commission basis. And instead, we call it the salon suites tsunami. It kind of came and hit the market full force, where now there's a large building like maybe a Sola Suites or Salons by JC building, where there are all these mini suites in there, right? You walk in and you can get your eyebrows done in suite 1 and makeup in suite 2, et cetera, et cetera. And they're all run by independent business owners and contractors. And so that was putting those two things together made us really pay attention when we started to get our own experience back in 2012. And so the market is huge. Like Tye mentioned, there are stylists who are graduating on a weekly basis, being licensed on a monthly basis. And this is not just happening in Texas, it's happening everywhere. On the grand scheme of things, there are over 1 million licensed stylists. And that doesn't even include people who are out there doing hair without the license. They may have gone to beauty school, graduated, right? So they got all the training, but they didn't end up getting licensed. They can still do the work, but just don't have the piece of paper. So over 1 million licensed stylists in the U.S. alone, 70% of those are independent. And then you have on the flip side, the same number of salons and barbershops right now, over 1 million of those, and 80% of those rather are what we call in the industry non-employer-based establishments, which means that these folks are used to having people come in as independent contractors to rent out a salon suite or a booth at a time.
And how are people getting matched to that system previously? Was it Craigslist?
That was the cool kids way, of finding space. Oh my gosh, you guys are going to laugh. But believe it or not, you walk into beauty schools and barber colleges today, and we do on a regular basis because we sit on the boards of beauty schools and barber colleges all over the U.S. And we still have in the industry a physical job board that's right next to the computer terminals, going into right next to the vending machines. And you'll see tons of salon owners who have tacked up their cards, or barbershop owners who have put their cards up there saying, hey, once you guys graduate and get licensed, give me a holler. So that's the standard way to do it. Then also it's peer-to-peer recommendation. Our industry really works word of mouth, right? Just like, when you go to your barber and someone compliments you on your, stylish haircut, they're going to ask you, wow, well, who cuts your hair? And you're going to tell them. So that happens exactly the same in our industry. You say, well, where are you working now? Oh, I love this salon. My clients love it. So that's how people heard. Or they literally pick up the phone and start cold calling. They go to Google and type in salons near me, and they start calling and saying, hey, Tye, my name is such and such. Do you have an open suite? Okay, no, thanks. Hang up. Next salon. Hey, Joe, this is Courtney. Do you have an open suite? Okay, no. And
how untrustworthy does that sound? Somebody calling you can't see, wanting to rent your space. And, in this industry, it's about looks. And so people want to see your face. They want to feel your energy. They want to know few things about you. And just cold calling people is a definite no.
Mm-hmm.
I really should have done my hair this morning.
That's funny. You do not look bad, for one. And two, it's hilarious. And every time we talk to people, they always start critiquing themselves. They're like, oh, wait, my hair is this, and my makeup is this, and I should have done this. And my husband is like that, like the way I am in marketing, where I'll look at a piece of paper and I can easily spot the typos and, punctuation errors. He's looking at hair and how he would have cut the hair and how he would have done the eyebrows. I think it's hilarious.
Yeah, this is a very bad time to spend 2 months without getting a haircut. So...
No, you're fine.
You're fine.
I often say that you can kind of tell Eric's mood or how things are going by how active the front of his hair is here. He seems like he's in good spirits this morning.
I am in good spirits. Yeah. Enough about my hair. So we've kind of danced around the question I'm about to ask, but we've talked about the problem. We've hinted at the solution. I'm curious if we can jump into what ShearShare is in your guys' own words.
So this was going back to 2012, right? And then we decided we were going to bootstrap this thing because Tye and I did not know about the startup world. We didn't know about Silicon Valley. That seemed to be a far off continent, if you will. And then we started to ask questions and do research and find people who were tied back to the startup world. And so we ended up going through a couple of programs, YC Fellowship, 500 Startups, to get us to the point where we officially launched our beta app in September 2016. So ShearShare is actually the first B2B mobile app that allows stylists to rent salon space by the day. The beautiful thing is that it's a win-win for the industry because that salon owner, that barbershop owner, that spa owner who has the excess capacity, who has the open suite, the empty station, can now rent it and fill it with a vetted licensed professional on a day-to-day basis.
What is the current efficiency before ShearShare? If a salon is not using ShearShare, what is their unused capacity or what is their opportunity cost?
40%. The overhead, the space is like 40% unused. So the overhead costs are a killer. So you're thinking about electricity. You have your electricity on all day long. You're using your water. You have your Wi-Fi, your cable, and you're also using products. And if you don't have people using those products and spending time with clients that can utilize those products, your overhead costs are killing you. And we're talking about monthly. And if you're a commission-based salon, just throw an ABC product user out there or a school like an Aveda who actually farms their students into their salons. And if you're not selling a certain amount of products, that salon has to close down because you have to buy a certain amount of products every month in order to really be a concept salon. So what is a concept salon? A concept salon is a Paul Mitchell that has a Paul Mitchell school that farms their students and trains them the Paul Mitchell way and farms them into the Paul Mitchell salon. And so you have a lot of salons out there like that have schools that farm the students into the salons. So they have a certain way that they actually sell their products, and the concept of how they sell their products is also teaching those students to become licensed professionals who work in that concept salon. So just think about the overhead. And not only that, the leasing contract and how long the lease is. So this right now can kill your industry. So we travel all the time. So from Beverly Hills all the way to Brooklyn, New York. I mean, salons have anywhere from 3 chairs to 17 chairs, depending on the size, empty. And so you can see no one in a salon all day long. They're just waiting. So why is that? Because people don't have the opportunity to have that on-demand experience, to have that experience where they can take care of their clients. So what are they doing? They're going outside of the salon and the accoutrements that they were classically trained and going to people's homes. Hence why you have so many B2C apps that allow people to go to people's homes. That is not really an efficient way. But when you have to adapt and when you have to survive, you make it work.
Yeah. And if you ask actually any number of stylists, they'll tell you that the salon is where they do their best work because, as Tye said, that's where they were classically trained. And so we give them the opportunity now to have access to that professional space at a budget price that is convenient to them. I think one thing that has come up that we did not expect was that these stylists are choosing ShearShare host or ShearShare location based completely on their clientele. Let me clarify. So let's say that I'm going to cut Tye's hair on Monday and I know he's more of a sporty guy, right? So I'm going to go on the ShearShare app and I'm going to choose a location that fits his personality. And then maybe I'm doing Courtney on Wednesday and I know she likes, squiggly brows and neon hair color. And so I'm going to choose like a more punk rockish salon space. And so the stylists are hyper focused, as we should be, on the clientele and meeting their needs and providing an A+ customer experience because that is their bread and butter. That's their book of business. If my client's not happy, I'm not going to be able to feed my family tomorrow. And so it's been really interesting to see how people choose locations on the app. And we know it's because they're doing it based on what their clients like.
And if the client is not happy, they're going to look for a stylist or a barber or licensed professional that can give them what they need.
Yeah.
So
can you talk to me a little bit about the business model? How does ShearShare make money?
So right now, our hosts are able to join the platform free of charge. One of the big things about Tye and myself is that we got tired of seeing our friends, our fellow salon owners and barbershop owners have to shut their businesses down because of not being able to pay overhead and get people in their doors. And we could see on the other side of the fence that there were stylists and barbers who needed space to work. And so we're trying to make it super, super easy for people to join the platform. We go through and vet them, and the stylists will come on, type in a city, look for a location, start to filter and search, and then they make a booking decision. We get 25% commission on each of those. So it works very much like an Airbnb model.
And what does that booking look like? The host is saying, you can come in here, I have this booth open for $50 a day, or what does that transaction look like to the user?
Yep. So the user will, again, choose a location on the app. They will type in their credit card information and reserve that space. And then the host will get a notification that someone has booked their location, and they can go in and review the person. So now I can see Tye's headshot. I can see his 5 shears rating. So we have a rating system on the app. Instead of 5 stars, it's 5 shears. And so if he has booked at a ShearShare host in the past, I'll see what that other host has rated him or her. I'll see how many years he's been a licensed professional. I'll see what his licensed specialty is. So I know, okay, yes, I can host a barber. Yes, I can host a microblading artist. I'm zoned for that. I'll see a little bio that he provides to me. And usually what the host sees is a reason why that person is coming to their salon. Like, oh, I have 5 clients in your area, or, I need to be here for, before Christmas, et cetera, et cetera. And then the host either accepts or declines the reservation. And then once they accept, the credit card is automatically charged and the two are connected, and that's where the magic happens.
How far in advance is somebody trying to book a booth, and how much time does the host have to accept it?
So if you want to book tomorrow, you can do that. So you have to give at least 24 hours. So that way the host has an opportunity to alert the staff, to make sure the station is, spotless, make sure the receptionist, knows how to welcome. Plus they go back and forth on, hey, so where's the parking and what do I need to do as soon as I get there? They make sure they schedule a time they can come in and tour the location so that the stylist can get set up. So 24 hours in advance. But we see people booking all the way up to 60 days in advance. You can choose dates on the ShearShare app up to 6 months out, but we typically see a couple of days in advance all the way up to 2 months in advance.
I'm curious in your business what the kind of quantitative numbers are that you look at to determine success. So what are your key performance indicators that you kind of focus on?
Yeah, so, you ask any startup founder, right? And the majority of people would say revenue. That's not where we fall. We're a marketplace, and it's always interesting to try to figure out how to build up both sides. Like, do you focus on the chicken? Do you focus on the egg? We, by default, focus on the supply side. So there was a lot of education that we had to do, that we continue to do, right, to salon owners who have been doing the same exact thing since 1916. And so we figured, let's get the host on board. Let's get them to start talking about ShearShare, and then we'll be able to bring the stylist to them, right? Because there's no loss to the salon owner. They're able to list their space for free. We don't get paid till they get paid. I mean, it's really a pretty good deal right now. So yeah, instead of revenue, we look at 2 things that hinge on the success of the supply side. We look at number of bookings, and then we look at the utilization rate or activation rate of the host. Again, if 40% of salon space is going unused every day, it's a win if the city of Dallas, for example, we're filling space at a rate of 60 to 70 to 80% a month. So again, it's number of bookings. So we know that that salon owner now has been given overhead to pay their bills, to keep their businesses open. That's a huge heartstring focus area for us. And then making sure that these salons citywide, we look at them on a city by city basis, are actually being activated. So they're not just sitting on the platform, not being used.
Can you give us some of those numbers?
Yeah, so let's see. So top 3 cities for ShearShare today: Dallas, and that makes sense, right? Because that's home base for us. So Dallas, Los Angeles, and New York. Interesting thing about Dallas, right, is that many people don't think about us as being like the big tech hub, and we're not, no, yet. So people are not as readily looking for ways to use an app for something as they would be over in New York and LA. But because we sit in Dallas, and Dallas has almost 30% of licensed cosmetologists in the U.S. alone, it just makes sense. And again, Tye mentioned that, the 4 of the top 10 or biggest cities in the U.S. all sit in the Great Lone Star State. And so stylists who are looking to be more transient, who already have the flavor for becoming independent, who are looking to build their clientele in San Antonio and Austin and Dallas, et cetera, that it's a win-win for them. So Dallas, LA, New York. In those cities, our utilization rate or activation rates for the hosts in Dallas, 60%, in Los Angeles, 50%, and in New York, it varies. It can go up to 70% and down to 63%. That's because we're bringing on more and more hosts every week.
And just so I understand how you're calculating activation rate, that's number of days or number of days bookings divided by number of total days in a month for open chairs?
No, so actually bookings is separate from our activation rate. So bookings is just pure number, like how many bookings did the city of Dallas get? How many bookings did this particular salon owner get? Activation rate, we look at it on a host by host basis. And so and then roll that up to a city by city basis. And it is number of ShearShare hosts added that month that have also received a booking in that same month.
Got it.
And is there some level of stickiness that you see when somebody is added in a month and books that month?
It really does vary by the stylist. We see some stylists who we call them, super stylists, and they're booking ShearShare, 4 to 5 times a week, right? The average stylist, most people don't know this, actually works 3 to 4 days a week. So seeing anything above, north of that 3.5, 4 day number is always going to be a positive for us. And so we see some stylists who are using it more than 4 days a week, right? Because they have varying clientele that may be doing hair on a Monday and eyebrows on a Thursday. And then there are some that are booking it, 2 times a week because they are building up their book of business, right? They just graduated out of beauty school. They don't have the money for a long-term contract. They're not interested in being tied down to one particular chair in one particular location. And so they're using ShearShare to kind of build up their book of business as they go. And so instead of spacing their clients out, they pull everybody to Friday, Saturday as an example.
If I'm the stylist, am I typically using ShearShare? Let's say I'm a stylist starting out. Am I using ShearShare to go into a salon that I think is popular and is going to have walk-ins that are going to come to me, and now that's going to be someone that can be my client? I can give them my card, and if I travel elsewhere, they know they can find me personally?
No, you're actually using ShearShare coming out of school because you have clientele that you're bringing from the school to wherever you're going to be located at. And ShearShare is definitely only for licensed professionals who have clients already. So you're not able to go into a salon and then take walk-ins. That's just not how it operates. And then you become more of an employee then. So there's this case going in a new law in California called the Dynamex law, where the employees were turned into independent contractors, but they were still being treated like employees. So that case was won by the independent contractors at that time who didn't want to be independent contractors. And so that didn't want to be employees, and they called it the Dynamex law. So,
and that's affected the beauty industry as well. And so we are very sensitive to that, making sure that, the stylists who are looking to, make a living in this industry, to have a passion for beauty and barbering, that we give them the tools, the B2B tools that they need in order to be successful. And at the end of the day, they get to keep more of their hard-earned money using ShearShare.
Yep.
So do I typically then, if I have clientele and I know where they're spaced, am I getting them on a schedule to say, okay, I know I cut you every 2 weeks, so I'm going to just use ShearShare to book a booth at Santarelli's every 2 weeks? Like, do you see that type of repetitive behavior?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a typical use case for a few of our ShearShare stylists. And so it's your responsibility, you as the male grooming barber, to schedule your clients, right? And the majority of people in our industry still use pen and paper. There's a lot of different reasons for that, and a lot of different reasons why that will never 100% go over to on-demand booking online. But we can get into that later. But yes, that is how visiting stylists who would use the ShearShare platform operate today.
And I have a question on that. Maybe it's back to the numbers, but what percentage of stylists are coming onto the platform, making a booking, and then making a second booking at some point?
Yeah. So within the same month, that number is 55%. When we look at 90 days, that number is 78%.
Okay. And another big number that I wanted to ask about is total number of hosts on the platform. Is there any metric you can give around that?
We'll say, instead of giving exact numbers, we'll say we're just north of 1,000.
When you were talking earlier, Dr. Tye, about the overhead, I can certainly imagine the electricity, water, all the things that go into just having the space and having unused chairs, huge overhead. Do you have a figure on that per average?
Man, there's no certain average because all salons are different sizes and locations It's definitely varying in their cost in that. So you're thinking about locations, regions from LA to New York, and then you have the central locations. So you can look at lease amounts being anywhere from $2,500 to $10,000 a month. Then you can look at electricity being anywhere from $250 to $550 a month. Then you got product cost that can vary in from $500 to $10,000, depending on how big your salon is, how many people are using it, what you have to pay for per month. You also got to look at the water usage, the CAM charges, along with that lease. And then you got to think about all the other things that the customer wants. They want free coffee, they want water, they want Wi-Fi. So all these things are built into that. So a lot of times the counting up the cost, it can be difficult to imagine and then to think about it futuristically. So you're signing these long-term contracts and leases for from anywhere from 5 years to 20 years. It can be daunting. Those numbers vary. It's scary to even think about it now when you think about independent contractors, because I think sometimes the corporate companies, I remember about 8 months back, Smart Styles that are located in Walmarts, they closed down 600 of their Smart Styles. And this is a corporate company. And those individuals were scammering just to find a place to go. And ShearShare was the platform they came to.
On either coast, we see a huge disparity, right, in the price per day, or like the average ShearShare stay or booking for that day. So California, New York typically goes for, $125 up to, upwards of $250-ish per day on the ShearShare app. Middle America seems to be between the $50, $65 range, but the average price for a ShearShare booking is $98 across the board.
You just mentioned you mentioned a bunch of stores closing down, and maybe this is survivorship bias on my end, but in Middle America, I can think about all the barbershops that are in my town, in my city, Cleveland, from growing up, and they're all still here, which makes me feel like there are a lot of costs that go in, but these businesses have to be at least breaking even or being able to pay salaries to their owners and employees. And like, they've been around for a long time, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I don't generally see barbershops kind of shutting down at the same rates. Maybe you see a restaurant shutting down or a retail store shutting down. And maybe that's anecdotal, but if it's not, I'm curious as to how much pain are barbershops feeling about this problem of open chairs?
Barbershops, the dynamics of barbers and stylists are totally different. We're all in the beauty space, but the survival is, they know they're taking care of the customer, and they know that business has to be in place in order to operate. You can't be a barber or a stylist and be in business, wanting to be in business for 15 years doing work at your home. So you almost have to have this business. And so we go through the hardships. We go through the tough times. A testament to that is the financial crisis back in 2008. All the service businesses were still open. And so the small businesses is what kept America really pumping. And so we used to survival, we used to adaptation, and we used to taking care of the customer because we know this customer is going to continually come to us. So, we go through the struggles. We may be struggling and you don't know it when it's really, really tough. But at the end of the day, the customers are taking care of them and they're taking care of the customers. So the money is constantly flowing. Now, it's all about how you're measuring your lifestyle. It's also what you're able to do for your clients. So, yeah, businesses stay open. It's the ones that really, really overdo it and really don't count the cost when they have to really decide to close down.
Yeah, I think what some people don't see, too, is that you may be looking at a traditional mom and pop barbershop, right? Or traditional mom and pop salon. And maybe that owner, didn't, like as Tye mentioned, count the costs, right, of ownership. And so you may see that same shop still open 5, 10, 20 years from now with the same marquee name. But that owner, which we don't know in the background, is that owner has, sold the lease to someone else, still works out of that same chair, for optics sake. But because of, overhead costs and not being able to manage well, there's a lot of shifting that actually goes on behind the chair. I think, too, that, salons are just more expensive in general. Now, we have been in some barbershops where the chair is like, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. But, in general, a salon, it takes more to operate than a standard barbershop.
And times have changed. Aesthetics mean a lot,
Oh, yeah.
And hence why you have so many salon suites that are able to give that general aesthetic so that they can look attractive. So you want to make sure you're doing your due diligence and what the customers want. And so sometimes you have to put the money in and understand that for the next 3 to 5 years, you're going to break even.
Besides your own, what's the coolest barbershop or salon you've ever been in?
Oh, that's easy. That was Tokyo. It was a chair it had two chairs.
It was two chairs in this salon, and they were $1 million stations. So what does $1 million station look like? You walk in the salon, you get in the chair, and you don't have to do nothing. Yeah. The arms move for you, the legs move for you, the chair moves to the shampoo bowl. The shampoo bowl moves sideways, it comes to you, and all you have to do is just sit there and wait for them just to touch your head and do everything else. You don't have to do anything. It's almost like it's a robot. Yeah. I've never seen anything like it. It was the coolest thing I've ever seen. They're so ahead of their time.
And only 2 people were working out of that salon.
The mom and the son.
And the son.
And I asked them, I said, could you please tell me? I tried to use the best language I could to just kind of break the numbers. And they gave me the numbers on the chair and the station, and it equaled out to be $1 million.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Beautiful.
That's wild. Something I was trying to back into, and I don't want to get too far away from it. I was trying to get into, with the opportunity cost question, it's pretty clear. It's a pretty easy selling proposition to the salon owner. You have 40% of your space unused. You know you have overhead. I can help you fill that. How do you guys, as ShearShare the business, quantify the opportunity ahead of your company here?
Yeah, so when we look at new cities to launch, and to be honest, we thought we were going to launch in 3 new cities, right? We said we're going to do Dallas, we're going to do LA, we're going to do New York. I had no idea that would actually become our top 3 today. We just saw huge opportunity areas there for, because they're transient stylists. The adoption of tech was easier on either coast, so they totally get it. And then just made sense for us to land here in Dallas, being that, a majority of stylists are actually out of the Lone Star State. So when we look at the opportunity cost and where we're going to launch next, we look at a few things. We look at number of beauty schools and barber colleges that are in the area. We look at our relationship with those existing schools. Tye's been in the industry 25 years. And so, he can make a couple of phone calls and get into, the head of the school or the GM of the area. We look at the number of salons and barbershops that have opened in the past 5 years and that have closed in the past 5 years. And then we look at just the general macro trends in that area, right? So we've seen this trend in beauty kind of shift from, I want to be working out of this salon and this chair, for 20 plus years, get my gold watch and whatever. And that is shifted, right? So if we see that the typical environment in a particular city is also changing, where people are working out of places, out of businesses, corporations for, 18 months, 2 years at a time, instead of making a longer go at it, we know that that's a really good place for us to set up shop. On the flip side of that, we just look at we layer on the list of requested cities that we have. And we still have a list of over 250 cities that people have requested, where it doesn't make sense for us right now to be laser-like focused in those cities, but they are coming on board eventually.
So how big is that? How many, if you're in, how many cities are available, and is ShearShare a $10 billion business? I'm trying to quantify the market itself. I'm asking if everything goes right and ShearShare just hits it and is the number one place for people to match as a stylist to an open booth. What does that mean for you guys as a business?
What we're doing right now is a game changer in itself. No one has dwelled into what we do. How we can quantify that number is so many different ways. One of the things that I feel like right now is that people just don't understand. This is a $16 billion industry. And so what we're trying to get people to understand is that you don't have to do any of the old school stuff. You putting your salon on a Craigslist, that's a writing. People actually don't want to have to call. Everything is a click of a button now. You're touching and you're able to go to the phone number. You're touching, able to go to the address. You're touching, able to Google map yourself to this salon. So we want to give people an understanding that this new trend of, apps, this new trend of social media has changed the game. So before, when there were B2C apps, there were booking apps, people were doing things that were traditional in their mind. They weren't thinking about the change. You have to see things before. You have to look very far ahead. And this is one of the things that I've learned to do in this industry. It's just kind of meeting people where they are and also giving people what they want next. And so what we're doing right now by giving people what they want next is offering them the opportunity not only to see what we're talking about, but to educate them. Because people will listen if you're giving them something better. And so, how can we quantify that? It's big. It's really big.
How big is your guys' team?
Yeah, so we have 10 employees today. We're so proud of that, being able to create 10 jobs that didn't exist before.
That means a lot from two, because I tell you something, when you're two people doing everything, you start to get scatterbrained and you don't know where to start and where to begin and where to end. So your 24 hours really needs to be more than 24 hours, because you're up, you're sleeping here, you're sleeping there. You don't know where you're at sometimes.
Let me go back to your original question, though, about market size. I know so Tye spelled it out with the $16 billion opportunity cost. And again, this is the first time that this market has ever existed, right? So we're creating something. But the way we kind of backed into it was looking at those number of non-employer-based establishments, what that average ShearShare rate is, which is the $98 a day. Once we cover off 10 to 20% of the market, that puts our revenues north of $800 million over the next 3 years.
So you mentioned you have 10 employees. Can you kind of break down what those employees are doing?
So out of the 10 team members on ShearShare, almost half of us are engineers. That's important because we are a tech company, right? Just happen to be in beauty. Then we have biz dev. We have one dedicated biz dev person who is tackling the state of Texas. And we're just using that to try to figure out what that particular playbook needs to be. Like how do different cities operate? How do different regions of the universe kind of operate? Then we have ops and customer support. We learned very on that if your product is not, where it should be, or according to the expectation of the user, as long as you have exceptional service and provide a phenomenal customer experience, people are very forgiving. And so our ops team and our customer support team, that's a three-woman strong team, and then marketing as well.
So if you could hire one person right now that would take your business to the next level, what type of role would that be for?
Yeah, we have two different ones that we're looking at today, actually, that are open rec. So if anybody's listening, you're interested in beauty and tech, we're looking for an additional back-end engineer and then also a head of growth marketing. I'm the marketing person today, but that is not where I need to be in the future. And so we need somebody who can additionally help out with execution.
So before we get to Dallas, we've talked a lot about growth strategy, expanding cities. I understand that you guys have raised about $1.1 million to date. You have a team of 10. I'm curious what fundraising looks like going forward, and if that is the way that you're planning to grow and grow fast, or if you're profitable and you're going to operationally leverage for growth.
Yeah, so we first started, remember, we didn't know what startups were back in the day. And so we just bootstrapped this thing, right? We just depleted our savings, paid off everything from cars to mortgages to credit cards, whatever. So we didn't have any excuse when a bill came in the mail to say, oh, well, maybe we should put money towards that versus this dream of ours called ShearShare. And so we did the hard stuff, in the very beginning. And the hard stuff also includes fundraising. Like even coming out of YC Fellowship and 500 startups, it is not easy to look across the table at someone who is not your end user, right? And try to help them understand and sell them on the bigger vision of ShearShare. But we did, thankfully. So yeah, we raised a pre-seed round of 1.1 million. We will continue because we want fast growth and we're seeing it on the supply side. So now we want to focus and double down on the demand side. So we will be going out to raise a proper seed in 2019.
Guys, you guys are the first company from Texas on our show. And, our ethos of the show is startups and ecosystems outside of Silicon Valley. So would love to hear about Dallas as a startup ecosystem, but also something you keep throwing out is that 30% of licensed cosmetologists are in the Lone Star State, which, I know Texas is big, but 30%, that seems huge. Can you talk to me how that is?
Yeah, well, because we're a big state and because, people are getting their hair done, everywhere. People are getting I'm getting my roots colored. I'm getting my nails done. I got massage therapy. Beauty literally touches, everyone in the entire world. And there have been so many reports and studies actually on the benefits of having your stylist or your barber physically with their fingers or own two hands touch your head and how healing that is. And that also attributes to the loyalty that you mentioned prior to the conversation and how, how that person makes you feel, not just when you get up out of that chair and look like $1 million, but how that individual makes you feel while you're being serviced. That also attributes to the loyalty and why you keep coming back and back for more. It's not like a drug, but it's very similar to that.
And one of the things I will add to that is that Texas and California pretty much control the industry and the laws when it comes to the regulations. Yeah. So hence why there's so many schools here, why there's so many salons here. About 4 of the biggest cities are here. Mm-hmm. So the numbers don't lie. And when the numbers don't lie, people listen.
Yeah, we're also, one of our investors is Steve Case, JD Vance out of Rise of the Rest Fund. And as you guys know, or probably know, their investment thesis is very similar, right? It is that not every great idea sits in New York or Silicon Valley. And so they look really hard for hustle makers like ourselves, chain makers who are really trending up in where we see the industry going and how we're looking to impact it. And so, so Dallas is great for us because, yes, it has the majority of, a large number of stylists, so we can do a lot of testing. We can get to different cities to do different testing. But then also, from a biz dev standpoint, which Texas and Dallas especially is really, really strong in, it's easier to find talent here. And we do have this sort of kind of, beehive effect, if you will, that when people come to Dallas or think about even transitioning to Dallas or relocating to Dallas, there are other opportunities if that opportunity with that particular startup or company doesn't work out, right? So it's not like they move here and then that one opportunity goes and then they're left kind of, hanging in the wind. And so lots of opportunity for biz dev and sales in Dallas. We're not the hotbed yet for tech. That honestly has been a little difficult to find. And none of our engineers are actually out of Texas. They're on either coast. But biz dev, operations, support, executive staff, and marketing all sit in Texas.
This maybe kind of goes back to the team question, but which one of you? I've seen the app. You mentioned that half your team are engineers. Who did the product design of the product, and who manages the product development? So
Tye manages the product side. Funny thing here, the app was actually built on a Chipotle napkin.
We like to see faces when we say that.
Yeah, but it makes sense though, right? Because again, we had 3 years of doing this manually. So by the time we said, okay, this needs to be an app that we should create, we had all of that directional data to go on. We knew what questions the salon owner was going to ask. We knew what the stylist expected to see. And we're still learning that, but at least we had something to go off of. And so we were eating rice and beans, right? Because we're bootstrapping this thing and we just happened to be at Chipotle. We're sitting there talking about something, a booking that happened a couple of days prior. And so Tye pulls out a napkin and a pencil. He was like, this is what the app needs to look like. And he literally started drawing it.
You guys had mentioned being a Y Combinator Fellow and part of 500 Startups Batch 19. Rise of the Rest Fund has been involved in supporting you. Is there any investment from the local ecosystem, or what does the investment ecosystem in the Dallas area look like?
Yeah, so we're still gung-ho about, we being the Texas-Dallas community, really big on like oil and gas and real estate, if you will.
Fintech,
yes.
And medical.
Yeah, and medical devices. And so startups, there is definitely, I feel like something's happening. Like they're starting to put more attention towards startups. We're getting some great press in general, not just for ShearShare, but other startup founders in the area. And all that helps, right? Because it becomes kind of like this groundswell. But only 10% of our cap table today are investors from Texas. The rest are out from the Valley.
And it makes a lot of sense because, Silicon Valley with investors, they believe in the next anomaly, the next dream maker, the next company that's going to really do well. So they give money freely. There are not a whole lot of stipulations to what the money that they're giving besides just go out there and grow it. They have that extra money that they know that if it hits, it's going to do well for them. Generally in Dallas, when you're looking at oil and gas, fintech, medical, real estate, there's always a return, a fairly high return really quickly. So that's the mindset. So, that's the disparity between a California and a Texas. And Texas doesn't want to be California. California doesn't want to be Texas. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, that you have some great business minds in Texas. It's not the ultimate entrepreneurial state since we have so many corporations sitting in Texas, but the mindset of small businesses is here.
Yeah.
And so that's where the disparity comes from, and the mindset of really delving into tech and how it can happen. So you have people now that really understand the tech space, and so they're building the capital factories here. Austin is kind of like the Silicon Valley of Texas. So they understand,
support,
the university support and all that. Yeah. So the alums that are from is SMU and UT Dallas. So major support from those guys. We love Brian Chambers. We were just with him the other night. And so one of the things we try to tell people is that it's here. The mindset is very, very different, but it's here, and it's going to get bigger.
And even when I look at our list of investors, right, like they they don't believe that you have to sit in the valley in order to have a rockin', marketplace tech startup. And so they really believe and are betting on the jockey rather than the horse in this case. Future casting
here.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I love Santarelli's Barbershop is because I can book with Sean through an online scheduling platform. Click, click. Dr. Tye, you mentioned this. Click, click, click. Do the users of ShearShare as a stylist, do they have a separate booking system? Is there an opportunity for you guys to also become that hub to say you can book your stall and also you can send this link to your book of business and have them book through the app?
I'm going to let Courtney answer this as well, but I'm going to say something first. That's a possibility, but we know that right now that there are apps that do just that. Mm-hmm. What we're trying to do is solve the problem, the first step of the problem that people have, and that's looking for space. When they get out of school, they're not thinking about a booking app. They're not thinking about anything but I have 2 clients. How can I get to 20 in 6 months? And how can I get to 40 by the end of the year? Mm-hmm. And so building that clientele base is more important to us. So giving them that space is where the ecosystem starts with ShearShare. So we want to make sure they're satisfied in that area. Courtney, anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. So, space to work sits at the beginning of the stylist life cycle, and that's a nut that no one has ever attempted to crack before. So why not us? In addition, today, ShearShare is a mobile app where you as an individual stylist can find space to work on demand and pay by the day instead of being tied down to a long-term commitment or a long-term contract. But in the future, ShearShare will be this B2B ecosystem that provides any type of tool that you need in order to be successful in your business and to maximize your earnings potential. That includes space to work. That includes products on demand. That includes weekly pay stubs, which we actually provide today. That includes finance and accounting and quarterly tax filings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these are things that people haven't thought about in the past because probably what we feel is that you really have to be in the industry in order to understand the day-to-day challenges. And because we've, given sweat, blood, and tears, and this industry has fed our family for the last 25 plus years, we totally get the hurdles that you're going to go through because we've lived through them all. So we just want to make it easier for people if they're choosing to be a solopreneur in the best industry in the world we consider to be, then we want to give them the tools that they need, that we know that they're going to need.
Here on Upside, we call that starting on second base, and we love when founders are starting on second base. But for this interview, it looks like we're rounding third and heading home because we have taken this overtime. Yeah, you like that metaphor, Jay. You like that.
Wow.
Where can people find out more about you and ShearShare?
Yeah, so ShearShare, we're just ShearShare everywhere. On Instagram, be sure to follow us on Instagram there. On Twitter, for Tye, he has his own channel at Dr. Tye Caldwell, DRTYE Caldwell. And then if they have any questions for us, they can actually email us directly. His email is Tye, Tye, at ShearShare.com. You might want to email me first because I seem to respond faster. Mine's just Courtney at ShearShare.com.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, Eric, we just spoke with Tye and Courtney Caldwell of ShearShare.
We did. And in that interview, you mentioned your barber quite a few times.
Well, I do get my hair cut about once a month. And the man who cuts my hair, Sean, owns a couple of barbershops here in Columbus, Ohio. And so I thought it would be good for us to actually call him and get his insight about running a shop and anything that comes to mind, good or bad, related to the service ShearShare is offering. So I gave Sean a call and we talked for a few minutes, and we're going to share that here. So before we get into that deal memo, please enjoy this short interview with Sean Mency of Santarelli's Barbershop. All right, Sean, so you've owned Santarelli's. You have how many shops now?
2.
2 shops, and you started when?
I opened my first one in 2013, but it wasn't Santarelli's. I bought the first Santarelli's in 2014.
How many chairs or stalls do you have in each shop typically?
I've got, in Clintonville location, I've got 4 barber chairs. In the Flytown location, I have 5. Room to put more if I want to in Flytown.
Yeah. So when you open those, how did you decide how many chairs to start with?
Well, the space initially, Clintonville is small, so 4 was. It used to be a 2-chair shop. Basically, base it off the square footage. I know if I can do like 1 chair per 100 square foot of space.
Okay. And obviously, like if you have somebody working out of each chair in all of the amount of space that you can, that's like the best situation for you. How difficult is it to keep a barber or somebody renting? You do a rental base agreement there, right? So how hard is it
Yeah.
to keep those chairs full from like the provider side?
I mean, I don't know. In the beginning, it was rough. My first location, it was a bad location, so not a lot of walk-ins, not a lot of traffic. So I kind of learned that the hard way. You know, once you start getting walk-ins, it's as long as the barbers are making money, it's pretty easy to keep them around. Well, I don't know about easy, but it's easier. You know, as long as everybody's making money, everyone's happy.
Yeah. So when you have somebody new come in, do they typically bring in their own like book of clients, or are you helping them fill that at the beginning?
Yeah, most people don't come in with their own book. I think I've got 11 barbers between both shops now, and I've got one person who came in with his own book. And he had been in the shop for 10 years, and it closed down. So that's why he had his own clientele. But yeah, outside of that, it's my job to get them walk-ins, and it's their job to keep them once they cut somebody.
How much do you think about like when you have an open chair? How actively are you trying to fill any opening that you have at any time?
It depends on, you know, Clintonville's busy enough to where if I have an open chair, I don't have any open chairs, but say if there was a day where I didn't have someone working, I would try to fill that chair that day just because they're busy enough. By town, you know, you don't want to add too many chairs at once or too many barbers at once because you have to have the business to sustain the barber actually making money. So
because if they don't, they'll leave essentially. Yeah. It's not that it like costs you more money to have somebody manning an open chair. It actually is probably better for you to have all the chairs full all the time if the person is sticking around. Okay. So the company that we interviewed, just for context, they have this mobile app that basically salon owners can allow people who do have a book of business to come and rent a chair in a location for the day or for a week. That's kind of up to whatever the agreement is, and just use the space. And then the salon or barbershop owner keeps a cut of what they do. What's your reaction to like that business model?
You know, Salon Loft does the same thing, but they're geared more toward cosmetologists. Obviously, it's a great business model. You know, it worked for Salon Loft. So a lot of barbers actually want that, the independence. They want to be able to come and go as they please. And when you get into a barbershop, you know, they are independent contractors, but you know, what you have to explain to them is we have a certain standard here and we're going to keep that. And if they do want to come and go as they please and call off a lot or come in late, leave early, they probably won't be working here too long. So that business model is a great concept. Obviously, the barber would actually have to have a clientele. I could go there and cut out of it.
Right.
And I'd be fine. Most of my barbers wouldn't.
So you as like the owner of the shop, what concerns would you have about somebody just coming in and using the space for a day if they did have like their own clientele?
Oh, I'd be all about it.
Cool.
I'd be all for it. That's the hardest part. If I could put an ad out there to find barbers that have a full book and give them a space to cut, I would.
Cool, man. Well, thanks again for jumping on here. I'm sure I'll be back in for a cut here in a week or two, and I'll give you a bigger thank you tip for coming on the show.
No, you're good. You don't know me anything.
All right, man. Talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Jay. Happy New Year.
All right. So we just spoke with Sean of Santorelli's Barbershop, gave us a little bit more background. Time to get into our favorite part of the show here, Eric, the deal memo.
Let's do it. Let's evaluate this opportunity. But first, let's start where we like to start on Upside with the founders.
Yes.
Yeah, founders. Double. This is the first time we've done that. So it's going to be the first time on Upside looking at both founders and kind of trying to evaluate that whole story. So what do you think about Tye and Courtney? Dr. Tye and Courtney.
I really like their dynamic. I wish we would have spent a little bit more time on their personal backgrounds. We got a little overeager. I'll put that on me. Got a little overeager in getting into some ShearShare specific questions, because really, really interesting teaser into both of their backgrounds. You know, Tye was talking about growing up in a 13-child household. There was a lot we could have talked about there to see what did that mean for his development and becoming an entrepreneur. He also told us he has a doctorate in professional barbering. Is that right? Barbering? Professional barbering? Yes. A doctorate in professional barbering, which I had a lot of questions about. I just don't even know what that type of program looks like or what that means, but it's apparent that he clearly has a lot of experience in the industry. He's a speaker. He wrote a book, literally wrote a book on the industry. So as far as Tye goes, really strong background, and then you bring in Courtney. It seems like they personally obviously have a strong dynamic as they're in a relationship, and Courtney really had a lot of the business model number questions we were asking as we went through the interview.
Yeah. So one thing that we like to say on Upside is that we like founders that start on second base. And I think, I'd like to hear your thought on this, that Courtney and Tye are definitely starting on second base when it comes to this industry.
Yeah, I think so. At least from the industry perspective, yes. The other thing that was really impressive to me about them as founders, I'll tell you, we've seen a little bit of the app from the App Store and from the screens online. And it's not entirely novel to have, a marketplace in an app. So I'm sure there's a lot to go off of. But the product management of developing the app, neither of them are, quote, technical co-founders. They're not developing the app themselves. And for Tye to have led the product development and product management of the product, I think speaks well to him as a leader and as a product visionary. It wasn't just that he saw the problem, he understood how he could actually solve the problem through technology, got it built, and they're operating that technology now.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of inputs that probably went into that with their concierge service that they had for 3 years beforehand that really helped, and it's why they could build the outline for the product on a Chipotle napkin.
There was another question we asked about expansion, and then I got all excited about product expansion. And is that horizontal or vertical integration? If you were to do other services,
horizontal
integration. I got excited talking about that, and
I think that's vertical. Well, how come we never know what horizontal and vertical integration are? It seems like those are basic concepts.
I'm pretty sure vertical integration is like going through the supply chain,
right? So if you're gonna offer more services, isn't that vertical?
I think it's horizontal. I think vertical would be if there are aspects that go into your current service, you are taking over the development of those aspects. It's like if you are McDonald's, or no, let's take an example of like Homage t-shirts here in Columbus. When they started developing their own line of t-shirts, I think that is vertical integration as opposed to just bringing it in.
As opposed to but they're offering, you're saying other services. So like if Homage started making pants, that's horizontal.
Right.
Great.
Please tweet at us if we're screwing this up, guys. At Upside FM. Anyway, when I was asking that question, they gave us a very focused response. That was not, I'm sensitive to shiny object syndrome with founders, and that was not what I got from Courtney or Tye. They did allude to some future possibilities, but they're very much focused on doing what they're doing now, expanding city to city, which they also seem to have a plan for.
Yeah, one thing that, on that note of focus, that I guess I'd call a shadow, is in concert with something that Sean brought up on your guys' chat. And ShearShare has 8 different types of professionals on their platform. And that's a lot of different customizability. It also feels kind of broad to me. I know that I misspoke a few times on the interview when I meant to ask generally about their customer base, and I said a barbershop, and they answered a question specifically geared towards barbershops because they have that domain expertise and they understand the differences between the two. So then I took that understanding from the interview of my misunderstanding, and I merged that into something that Sean said with a company called Salon Loss. I believe that was the name.
Yeah.
And it seemed like, from my quick research on them, that they are just focused on salons. So my question is, my shadow is, would it be better to just focus on one type of customer on the supply side? Or is it great because there is such flexibility?
Yeah, good question. Salon Loft, to my understanding, is a salon itself. Like it's somewhere I could go right now to go get my hair cut. It's a establishment. But I think their model is they allow independent stylists to come in and work out of that space in the booths. I think that's the tie he was making. I hear what you're saying, and it's a good question. My hope and assumption through the interview was basically these different shops have essentially the same needs, which are an open space and the accoutrements which is a word they kept using that I absolutely love.
Accoutrements.
Accoutrements is a word I've only heard before in Winnebago Man, the video on YouTube. Anyway, my assumption was these different establishments have the accoutrements to handle that breadth of 8 different types of users. So it's more of the service through the app is the same. Why not allow them to use it? I didn't get the feeling that they are strongly marketing towards all of those different use cases. But I don't know. They talked about massage therapists.
They talked about makeup. They talked about barbers. They talked about salons. So yeah, there was just kind of a lot. And maybe it was just a verbiage thing that if I would have had like a better understanding up front of, okay, these are the 8 types of professionals and these are the 3 types of what I'll call studios, what you just called shops. See, we still don't have a good word for it. I could probably fit that better together in my head, but it was something that I lost out on during the interview.
Yeah, my assumption is you wouldn't have like a massage therapist go in and work at Santarelli's with Sean. Like, I don't think he would open that space up. It's probably a domain-specific space that chooses some sort of radio button or whatever for like, we support these types of professionals.
So we do a lot of marketplaces here on Upside, but this is like a marketplace with an additional layer of the matching problem. Because if I'm a massage therapist on the demand side and ShearShare takes off for the barbershop crowd, so there's a ton of barbers on it and there's a ton of barbershops, ShearShare doesn't have much utility to me if there aren't a lot of different, what I'm now calling studios, which is probably the wrong word. If there's not a lot of studio spaces that are salons that have private rooms for massages or spas, maybe spas is the right word. So you not only do you need to create a marketplace that has a big depth of spas, barbershops, studios, salons, but also it needs to have a breadth.
I see. You're saying that this marketplace has several marketplaces within it. So each one of those marketplaces needs to have its own supply and demand ratio that works out.
Right. And that's a little unique compared to the other marketplaces we've started with.
That's a good point.
One thing that I'm excited about is this 40% number that Tye was kind of tossing around. And I believe it was like there's 40% occupancy across the entire space. So there's kind of like this 40% fill that could be done with this ShearShare model.
Yeah, 40% vacancy. Yeah, and that's something that I was trying to pull and understand the pain that Sean felt around that, which is where I tried to focus the bulk of what is admittedly a pretty short interview. I was trying to ask him, how are you trying to fill those chairs? And for him, his mindset is, my barbers are representing Santarelli's, and they need to, for them to be happy here, they need to be busy. So he's not trying to fill chair, like if he can't fill the capacity with demand from customers, he's leaving those chairs empty. It seemed like the idea of bringing in a barber who already has a book of business just to cut in the space isn't something he had considered strongly before, because at the end of that interview, when I asked him, well, if you could do this, what would you think? And he's like, I'd do it all day. So my shadow then is the users of ShearShare are exactly the type of person that it seems Sean did not expect he could pull in to do this type of thing. It's somebody that has a book. I wonder how big that market is of stylists who have a clientele but not space so they can reliably keep using this. And Courtney gave us some numbers that help out a little bit with that. But before I try to do some math and hurt my head, I wanted to get your take on that, Shadow.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think my only additional point on that would be a question as to location. So when I think about you're going to Santarelli's all the time, right? You're getting your hair cut by Sean.
You're thinking about me?
I'm always thinking about you, Jay. But you're going to Santarelli's, you're getting your hair cut by Sean. Let's say that you move to the burbs. You seem like a Gahanna kind of guy. So you go to Gahanna.
Kind of offended, but keep going.
To all our Gahanna listeners, you now know which co-host to like and which one not to.
Jeez.
So you move to Gahanna, and Sean realizes that he has 20 ex-clients that move to Gahanna. Well, he could go out there and do cuts for a couple days and just like kind of set up with you if he has like down days in his Columbus location. So I think it does provide a level of flexibility where you can kind of work with your clients to maintain these relationships, because as you said, this is the last real relationship I have from a services perspective as things get digitized and kind of move away from relationships. So I think that, to get back to your shadow, that's not exactly maybe a bad thing, that it's more of it could be more of a part-time flexible thing, and not everyone's going to be a super shear user or whatever they call them.
Yeah, and that is maybe good for me, the customer, and for Sean, the barber. Is that good for ShearShare, the business? You know, that's kind of what I'm asking here. But yeah, the loyalty here and the opportunity on an anecdotal level seems high to me, because even since this interview, my girlfriend had her stylist text her and say, "Hey, I'm not doing hair for a while," and it spun out her whole day trying to find, okay, who's going to do this again? And you know, she gets her hair dyed platinum blonde, and that takes a lot and is expensive. And so to find someone new and trust them to do it and to try to get the same price, it was a big stress. I could see it.
Let's dive into some numbers, because it sounds like you're excited to do some math, and I'm excited to watch you do some math.
We're going to try. Okay, so here's what I tried to piece together, and we were trying to pull out numbers to the interview so we could do some sort of math here. On the supply side, there seemed to be, well, on both sides of the marketplace, they gave us a number of about roughly 1 million. 1 million stylists, 1 million spaces. Right now, they estimated that they have just north of 1,000 hosts on the platform, and hosts can join for free. So we have no idea of how many of those hosts are active in generating bookings. That's the hole in my math here, but that's about a 1% penetration for the total market of hosts that are available. If they're averaging about $98 per day for a booking across the nation, they said the coasts were some number of money and the middle of the country was smaller, but on average about $98 a day across the country. And the average stylist works 3 to 4 days a week, with a super stylist working up to 5. Here are the numbers I took. 4 days a week times $98 per day times 1,000 hosts. If all of those hosts on ShearShare right now were active and they were working at an average of 4 days per week, that could be $400,000 in revenue through the platform in a week, which is $100,000 to ShearShare at a 25% commission. What we don't know is how many of those hosts are booking and how many days per week. But with that little bit of insight, you know, you extrapolate 1% times $100,000 per week. That could be $100 million per week.
$100 million.
Oh man, this is why I failed the case interviews, but I'm doing it on the fly. So, you know, I see the revenue potential. I need a little bit more insight into how frequently people are booking. She said that 55% will rebook within the first month. So a host will rebook within the first month if they use it, but I still don't know how many hosts are using it. She did say they have a goal of $800 million in revenue in the next few years. So I do think from an opportunity standpoint, it holds some water that there's real opportunity here. What do you think? Was that math right? Did you see any holes?
Just the ones that you pointed out yourself. I think that, I mean, obviously you didn't make an assumption on what percentage are active. You just went with 100%. So the number is admittedly going to be high, but it puts you on a $5.2 billion kind of opportunity here using the numbers that you laid out. And even if it's something closer to 50%, you're still at $2.6 billion for an opportunity, which, look, niche marketplaces, that's a pretty sizable like chunk of change.
I agree. And, you know, we talked to a friend of ours who knows the space a little bit, and we said, hey, here's a company that we think might be interesting to you. And he brought up two what he thought were competitors, which were Style Seat and Squire, saying it's kind of a busy space. But both of those companies focus on helping the customer book time with the stylist, which is, you know, the horizontal integration I was alluding to, that I still think there is some opportunity. That's the busier space. I did not find any direct competitors of helping people sort of Airbnb style rent out their unused space in their shops to stylists.
Let's talk about moats for 1 second. Is there because we're talking about competitors here, and we're talking about how the space is kind of evolving. Is there a significant moat for ShearShare?
I would say yes. I mean, think about, I'm going to Indianapolis today, and to book a space, I looked at Airbnb exclusively, right? Because I've used it before, it's worked for me before, and my perception is it's going to have the most options for me for location, price flexibility, the things I care about. There are a couple other major players, VRBO, etc. I'm sure there are a ton of smaller players that I don't know about, but when I'm trying to do this specific thing, which is not super frequently, I'm going to go to the place that has aggregated the most supply options for me, and that's Airbnb. And I would think that as they grow hosts, if they continue to grow hosts, they can be that style of aggregator for this activity, this marketplace.
So you're saying that the moat here is their ability to grow and grow fast, which means they have to become the biggest, the fastest.
Maybe I misunderstood your question. I don't know that they have a moat now. I see where their moat would be if they grow and grow fast and have the largest supply side on the marketplace for this type of activity, that would be a strong moat.
Awesome, because that is exactly what I want to see in the next 6 to 18 months. I want to see growth on the supply side, that 1% number of penetration. I want to understand how that has expanded. Hopefully it's expanded drastically in 6 to 18 months. And I want to understand what the game plan is for expansion going forward. What do you want to see in the next 6 to 18 months?
I'm with you. I like the idea of some sort of check on the health of the marketplace. Are both sides growing? Are both sides actively engaged and re-engaging? You know, if their churn is super high, if they're growing both sides, but nobody is sticking around, that's not really aggregating and building that moat. So I don't have a KPI for that. It would probably just be like weekly active users or monthly active users. Their KPIs that they gave us, they're focused on supply side, the number of bookings and utilization rate. So I'm checking on the health of the marketplace aside from the pure numbers. They had a pretty sizable pre-seed round, as they call it, $1.1 million. And the investors in them, Y Combinator, 500 startups, Backstage, Precursor, pretty legitimate investors. So it seems like there's some strong indicators here. What I really wanted to talk about, though, was Texas, our first foray into Texas here, and what Texas means for this company. Do you have any hot takes?
I guess I don't have any hot takes, but one of the things that I'm really excited about on this podcast is getting into Texas, because I think, well, it's clear by now that you and I have an affinity for Ohio. I think that Ohio and Texas actually have a lot in common as far as states go. Texas is just a much bigger, it's just much bigger. It's just much bigger in general. It's so big. Why is it so big? I don't know.
And remember the Alamo.
Oh, don't. No, but I am excited to get into Texas. I understand that I like the 30% number that they threw out of 30% of stylists or beauty professionals are in Texas. So it seems like there's a competitive advantage to being there, and it's not as cost prohibitive of being on the coast, which is where I'm guessing there's probably 30% in California and 30% in New York and 30% in Texas and 10% everywhere else.
Yeah, that was the number that stuck out to me too. 30% of stylists are in Texas. So it seems like a good place for that business from an industry perspective. They seem like good founders to be going after this business. What then stood out to me was that only 10% of their investors on the cap table are in Texas. And not to say that they should all be in Texas. You know, we're in the camp that your cap table should not be limited by geography. But as we look at ecosystems here, you want to see investment activity growing and the number of investors available in different ecosystems to be higher. So I don't know, we don't know much about the McKinney or Dallas startup ecosystem yet, but I would assume if we dropped in and we were talking to people and said, hey, what are the startups here? Who's doing well? ShearShare would probably be one of the first ones that comes up.
Absolutely. I love when you see companies and they have investors from all over the place. I think it's a trend that is in its infancy.
I also wanted to say, saying the word ShearShare is kind of fun.
It is kind of fun, and I kind of messed it up a few times. I had to practice, I think, in front of the mirror.
Do you still have Rap Chat on your phone?
I do have Rap Chat on my phone.
Do you get their push notifications with sound on sometimes?
I don't do push notifications.
So Rap Chat's push notifications have very unique sounds that are like clips from rap songs. And it scares me sometimes. But they had one for a while that was just shoo shoo. And every time I say ShearShare, I think shoo shoo. And I'm like, oh, I have a notification from Rap Chat.
That's great. Well, let's shoo shoo right on out of here. If people want to find out more about us, where can they go?
Yeah, guys, thanks for listening. If you have any thoughts on this episode, if we screwed up horizontal versus vertical integration, please tweet at us at UpsideFM or send us an email, hello@upside.fm. And if you're listening on Breaker, you can comment directly on this episode. Let us know what you're thinking as you're going through. If you're listening to this, you've already made it all the way through, so go ahead and just like the episode and share it with your friends. And if you like what we're doing here, please leave a review on iTunes. It helps us a lot. But otherwise, we'll be back here next week. That's all for this week. Thanks for listening. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's guest, so shoot us an email at hello@upside.fm or find us on Twitter at UpsideFM. We'll be back here next week at the same time talking to another founder in our quest to find upside outside of Silicon Valley. If you or someone you know would make a good guest for our show, please email us or find us on Twitter and let us know. And if you love our show, please leave us a review on iTunes. That goes a long way in helping us spread the word and continue to help bring high-quality guests to the show. Eric and I decided there were a couple things we wanted to share with you at the end of the podcast, and so here we go. Eric Hornung and Jay Klaus are the founding parties of the Upside podcast. At the time of this recording, we do not own equity or other financial interest in the companies which appear on this show. All opinions expressed by podcast participants are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinions of Duff & Phelps LLC and its affiliates, Unreal Collective LLC and its affiliates, or any entity which employ us. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. We have not considered your specific financial situation nor provided any investment advice on this show. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
Never mind, bro, that can't be matched. I'm lighting it on fire, used to run victory laps, and still I'm not even tired. It's all about the timing, yeah, that's what they say. Well, I'ma keep on rhyming, find a way.